You got to play with quite a few great players, competed against great players. You're a great player yourself. What was it like playing with Brian Dawkins, a Hall of Famer that a lot of people, idolized growing up?
Hey everyone, and welcome to Neat Conversations, where you get to see some of your favorite all-time Broncos enjoy a flight of whiskeys while talking about the good old days. Neat Conversations is sponsored by Horseshoe Spirits, the nation's first collegiate spirits line. In addition to the collective's bourbon, Horseshoe Spirits also produces gin, rum, and vodka, with proceeds from all sales going to the Horseshoe Collective in support of student-athletes' NIL efforts in partnerships with local community organizations. On today's episode, we're talking with an 11-year NFL vet, a former WAC Defensive Player of the Year, a Pro Bowler, and a two-time NFL All-Pro. Quintin Mikell was a crucial part of the national rise of Boise State football. He was a four-year starter from 1999 to 2002, and he still sits at second on the all-time rankings for career tackles at Boise State. We chat with Q about his time as a Bronco, his NFL life, and his move back to Idaho, including the numerous animals that float around the Mikell household.
Very excited, a tremendous Bronco, Quintin Mikell. Thank you for joining us on the show, and we appreciate you being here, not only just for the time, but you said you're not a big whiskey guy, and you're still doing this with us, so we appreciate that. You did mention Weller being one you enjoy. So when you think of whiskey, what is the good and the bad of whiskey? Why is it not your favorite, but why maybe are you okay with a Weller?
Well, the first time I had it, I was at one of the nice restaurants out here in Boise, and honestly, when I look at the whiskey, I kind of go by price. I'm one of those guys. I'm like, okay, so that one costs a little bit more than that one, so that one must be good, right? So I was like, oh, let me try this Weller, and it turned out pretty good. It didn't burn, and since I've learned from a friend of mine, Twan, how to drink whiskey. You're supposed to exhale and like the fumes and all that stuff. So I've learned a little bit. I'm getting cultured in the whiskey, so to speak.
I love it. Well, we'll start off. Our first pour sponsored by Simmons Fine Jewelry. They're one of the first and most prevalent sponsors of the NIL space at Boise State and the Boise State athletes that are key to this community and the program. So for our first one, now that you have all that whiskey knowledge, our first pour is sponsored by Simmons Fine Jewelry, amazing company that does a lot with the NIL space for Boise State. The first one, as always on the show, is the Horseshoe Spirits, the Collective's Bourbon, a wheated bourbon similar to the Weller 107 you like. So let's give it a taste and see what you think. Cheers.
Oh, that's good. Maybe I'm a whiskey drinker now, man.
You're a closet whiskey drinker. This will turn into an obsession of collecting, and it can become a bit of an issue. But Q, I want to go back to your time as a high school student athlete. You came to Boise State when Boise State was clearly a winning program, very much the blue-collar mentality, but before some of that national notoriety of the Fiesta Bowl. So Dirk Cutter is largely responsible for bringing you to Boise, but what was that process like, and why was Boise State the right fit for you?
Yeah, that was it was years ago. It's funny because I remember the summer. So I went to high school in Eugene, Oregon, Willamette High School, and that summer going into my senior year, I went to the University of Oregon's football camp, and when it's a Renegade, they kind of throw you on the team, and I ended up playing well at the camp. I got defensive MVP of the camp, and fast forward that next year, or that January, February-ish time, Cutter got the head coaching job at Boise State, and I'd taken trips to like Montana. I'd taken a trip to Idaho, and never told anyone this, but maybe some people know, but I actually committed to University of Idaho. But this was the week before I was coming on my trip to Boise State, and so my dad, he was like, I know you committed, but just go on this trip and see, how you feel. So went on the trip, came here, landed, just loved the city, loved the stadium, loved the people, and I just saw the vision that Cutter set forth. If I don't get too long in it, but one of the coolest things, he took me on the field on the blue, and I'd never seen that before. I thought it was really cool, and he just kind of painted this picture in my head, like, look at the stadium, imagine it being full with 30,000 people, and It was a really cool moment. It was just me and him on the field, and it's something I remember to this day. And that's when I made the decision. I was like, I want to be here.
That's fantastic. I think any Vandal fan watching would kind of cringe at that, but we'll maybe pour some salt on that wound. What was so good about Boise State that immediately you knew you needed to go back on your commitment to the Vandals?
So everybody knows Idaho's a party school. I was from Eugene, not a big town. And so that was my first time ever, a 16, 17-year-old, going to college parties and all that stuff. And so I was like, man, this is awesome. And then just the funny thing on my trip, and now I look back, they never took me to the Kibbe Dome, never took me to, the facilities or anything like that at Idaho. And that was one of the first things we did when we landed here. And the first thing I noticed was just the city. It just felt more like a city, but not a big city. It just felt home and cozy when we landed. And then going to the stadium, seeing the facilities, just seeing the vision and just what it could be here, and what had already been done here in the past was just something I wanted to be a part of. And that's all I kept thinking. I just want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. So that was really the big difference.
You go on to have an unbelievable career with Boise State. Ton of wins, ton of success individually. You finish number 2 in the all-time tackles record book. You're still number 2. What does that legacy at Boise State mean to you now that you look back several years later?
Well, it means a lot to me. Not that we like to say our generation, not our generation, but our group. Was me, Billy Wingfield, Dre Banks, Tim Gilligan, like guys like that were in that first kind of core group of guys that came up in the program. We like to say that we kind of set the stage and we kind of set Boise State off on the right foot to get to where they are now. And so, it's huge. It's really, it makes me feel really good to be a part of that legacy and to kind of feel like we kind of kicked things off here.
It's interesting today. You look at Boise State's conference, Mountain West recently moving to the Pac-12. And if you were a defensive player in the Mountain West, chances are you were going to get drafted at some point. The best Boise State players tend to get drafted. So it's not surprising when that happens anymore. But when you were playing, that's when we just started to see more and more guys go to the NFL. You were one of them, but you didn't get drafted. So what was that process like for you going from the best in your conference, setting school records, to now you're not getting the attention that maybe you deserved?
Yeah, that was tough. The draft is a crapshoot. You can have the best career ever. You can have the best workouts, whatever, and really all that matters is which teams are picking where and what are their needs. And so it took me a long time to really come to grips with that. I always felt that I should have got drafted, and I kind of had a chip on my shoulder my whole career because of it. And so it was one of those things where it's a gift and a curse, where it kind of fueled me and kind of made me work that much harder. But at the same time, it hurts. You just feel like, you're not as good of a player. You feel like you're nothing, and you feel like everything that you accomplished didn't matter. So I just took all that anger and the frustration, just kind of rolled it into, and use it as motivation.
So from there, I mean, a lot of people talk about if you're in those later rounds, there is a benefit to being a free agent because you get to pick your destination based off the right fit. You go to Philadelphia. What was the right fit about that, and where else might have you considered?
Yeah, that was so. After the draft is over, and what happens is, I would say probably the 6th to 7th round, when you haven't had your name called, a lot of coaches or scouting guys will start calling the players that are kind of left over, and they'll start trying to get them to come sign with them as a rookie free agent. And for me, I think Buffalo, San Diego, and I believe Cleveland were trying to sign me. I remember telling my agent, I was so frustrated. I remember telling my agent, like, I don't care, just put me in the best place. And so that happened to be Philly, because what happened was Philly had Brian Dawkins, who'd been there, perennial All-Star, Hall of Famer. They had Michael Lewis, who had been drafted in the 2nd round the year before I was up, and that was it. They drafted Norman Lejeune in, I think, the 5th or 6th round out of LSU, and then that was it. And so that was my best opportunity to make the team, was, hey, if I can just get my foot in the door, even if it's a 2nd, 3rd string guy, special teams guy, I just wanted to get an opportunity to play. And so my agent was like, hey, this is your best opportunity to make a team. There's one guy there that's locked. Everyone else is pretty much coming in and new. So do you want to go there? I was like, hell yeah, let's go.
The odds inevitably are stacked against an undrafted free agent, but it worked for you. How did that process unfold, being put on the active roster as an undrafted free agent?
Yeah. So that year, it was like 6 or 7 of us as undrafted guys that made it. It was me, Reno Mahe, Greg Lewis, a couple other names. And I truly believe that Andy Reid and his staff felt that us as a group, we were worth taking the time. We were worth putting the effort in to develop us as players. And many of us played multiple years in the league and continued to go back. Like Greg is still coaching. I believe he's a receivers coach or running backs coach with maybe the Ravens. He's with the Chiefs for a long time. So, I think the sole reason is because there was a guy named Andy Reid who was locked in at his spot for years in Philly. Tremendous coach, believed in developing players. We were cheap. We were cheap players. You didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on us. So if it didn't work out, hey, whatever. And so all those factors came together, and then we just came in and worked our tails off, man. Like, we were feisty. We were pissed off, man, and we all wanted to show what we could do.
All right, I'm going to get more in on the Eagles and the rest of the career, but we'll move now to our second whiskey, because you mentioned you like Weller. It's hard to find. That's why when you do find it at restaurants, a little bit higher price point. So Weller 107, wheated bourbon, just like the Horseshoe Spirits, a little bit higher proof, bottled at that 107 proof. But if you liked it before, I think you're going to like it again. So cheers to whiskey number 2.
Cheers.
As good as you remember?
Yes.
There's a whole lineup of different Wellers, different price points. They're all incredibly hard to find, but anytime you do, people are pretty quick to buy them up. Yeah. So, Q, walk me through one of the areas you were so successful in your professional career and college career is playing on special teams, an area that some athletes today may look down on as being less important, less cool, whatever. Why was it so important for you to be active and successful throughout your career on special teams?
Well, I think, so back then John Harbaugh was our special teams coach, and he really instilled, pride in special teams. He really made us believe and feel that it was a third of the game. A lot of times coaches will say that, but their actions don't really align with that. Harbaugh believed it, and we felt that we had a huge impact on the game. We had some games where we clearly just won on special teams, and so that was my mindset. Was like, whenever I'm on the field, dude, I'm gonna dominate. I'm gonna be the best that I can be. And so, like I said, with my mindset, the anger I had from not getting drafted and all that stuff, every time I was on the field, it was like, I'm angry. I'm gonna show everyone that I deserve to be here. And so that was the mentality of all of our special teams units. We had a unique group, guys that just didn't care and wanted to win.
You had a long career. You had a very successful career. So I'm curious, at any point, did that chip on your shoulder, maybe resentment for not getting drafted, once you've been in the league for as long as you were, did that go away where you were like, okay, I don't need to be upset about how it unfolded because it all worked out okay?
No, it stays with you. I mean, the closest, like Tom Brady, and I want to say that I'm like Tom Brady, but like his mentality, and that's why he was so great. It was like he was a competitor, ultra competitive to the end of the earth. And he's retired, but I'm sure he's like, he's trying to compete with Tony Romo in the booth on Monday Night Football. So it's just it's ingrained in you, and it's funny because once you've been in the league for a while and once you've had that mentality, it kind of becomes who you are. To this day, I'm early to every meeting, right? Because I remember if you late, you're getting fined $5,000, $10,000. It's coming right out your check, right? So the stuff that I learned early in my league days have kind of stayed with me, and it's kind of who I am now.
You got to play with quite a few great players, competed against great players. You're a great player yourself. What was it like playing with Brian Dawkins, a Hall of Famer that a lot of people, idolized growing up?
Yeah, he was. I mean, I idolized him. It was great. You know, he. It's funny. A lot of people think of him as this big, serious, angry guy all the time, and he really wasn't. It was just on game days when he would like flip a switch. During the week, he was cracking jokes with everybody. He was very religious, but he would still crack jokes, and he would say some funny stuff, and we'd catch him sleeping in meetings, and hey, we see you sleeping, and he'd be like, I was resting my eyes, silly stuff like that. But tremendous competitor. I tell a lot of people they don't realize how much that man put in just to make it to every Sunday. We'd see him during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and he could barely walk each week. I mean, his body was so beat up, and somehow, some way, he'd be ready to go. And I was kind of mad because, sometimes I'd be like, maybe this is the week I'll get to play, and sure enough, on Sunday, he's ready to go, So it was tremendous. He was a tremendous teammate. We had a lot of awesome guys. But yeah, Doc was truly amazing.
On the other end of the spectrum, a guy unbelievably successful on the field, but maybe more known for his off the field or non-competitive antics, T.O. What was it like being a teammate and going up against in practice Terrell Owens?
Yeah, no, T.O. was, first of all, I'm going to get this out. He was a great teammate. He worked his tail off. I never had any problems with him. I know some of the older guys, maybe they had some issues, but to me, he was a great teammate. He made me better because I was a backup, right? So second team, usually we go against the first team in practice. So I think our entire team, our entire defense got better because we had guys like Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown competing against a Hall of Fame receiver every week. And he did not, like every practice was like it's a game. And so to me, he was a tremendous teammate. He was a great competitor. He had some cool parties. We went to a few of those. But, all in all, I think he gets a bad rap in the media because of his persona. And he's really just a normal guy and ultra competitive.
Your career, you were all-pro, you were a Pro Bowler, played in a Super Bowl. When you look back at all of it, is there one marker of success that you hold most precious to you? What's the biggest thing of importance?
That's a tough one, man. I would say probably the biggest thing that I'm most proud of was making the All-Pro team. So I had a really good year. I think it was the year before I made the Super Bowl. I mean, the year before I made the Pro Bowl. I had a really good year. It was my first year as a full-time starter. I played really well. Obviously, being on the opposite side of Doc, you get more action your way. They're trying to stay away from him. So I made plays in the opportunities that I had, and I got the All-Pro. And to me, it was second team All-Pro, but still All-Pro. And I loved it because it was voted. It's not quote unquote a popularity contest. It's really voted on by the media. It's voted on by people that cover the game, beat writers, all that, and they vote on it. And so for me, that was probably the first time where I felt like accepted, like, okay, everything that I'm doing, everything I've been working hard for, people are noticing and they're seeing this. And so to me, that was as a player, that was the moment where I felt like, all right, I did it,
One of the things you mentioned is that when you look back at your playing career, whether it's pros or being a student athlete at Boise State, it taught you intangible skills that have helped you succeed in life that maybe you wouldn't put on a resume, but I'm curious, what are those intangible skills that you got that you feel really set you apart in being able to succeed once you were done playing football?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. So things like, leadership, being part of a team, not always being a leader in the rah-rah sense. Sometimes a good leader is one that follows. Sometimes a good leader is a person that takes a step back and allows other people to grow. So, leadership, different ways to lead. I think personally, paying attention to details, being on time, following through with any activity. Like I follow through with everything that I'm supposed to do. Those are the type of things that you learn. And it's almost like you kind of equate it to not quite the same. I mean, obviously not quite the same, but you kind of equate it to like a military background. You really feel like the only difference is you're not going to war or shooting people or anything like that. But like the same structure, the same attention to details, the same goal setting, the same, like all of those things are really very similar and they align in a lot of ways. And so those are the intangibles that I've learned from being at Boise State all the way up to playing in the league. And it's helped me throughout my life, and it's continuing to help me to this day.
So we'll move into current day, but first we'll get to our final pour. This is from the same distillery as Weller. This is E.H. Taylor Small Batch, another one that's an allocated whiskey, hard to find, often reflected in the price point. But we hope that if you like the Weller, you'll like the E.H. Taylor. The tasting notes from the distillery: corn, butterscotch, black licorice, black pepper. We'll see if you can pick up any of those.
Okay.
But here's to our third whiskey of the night, E.H. Taylor.
It's really good. I can taste the butterscotch.
There we go.
Thankfully, I don't taste the black licorice. I'm not a black licorice fan. That's really good. See, I should have known with anything that has the initials of the first person, E.H., you know it's good.
I might have to make some purchases just based off that. That's some sage words of advice. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Q, bring me to where we're at today. You finish decade plus long playing career in the NFL. Could have lived in any of the cities you played in, could have gone back home to Oregon. Eventually you come back to Boise. Why?
That's a funny story. So I'd been out in Philly, well, South Jersey for years. And my wife is a Jersey girl. She's from Jersey. And if you know anything about Jersey, they don't leave. They just they stay there. They live where they are. They go to the shore every summer. Like that's just how it is. And I've lived in New Orleans, Indiana, Oregon, Idaho. I've lived everywhere. I've moved around my entire life. And for years, I was telling my wife, "Hey, let's get a house back in Boise. Let's move. Let's do this. Let's do that." And nope, never did it. She never wanted to do it. And unfortunately, COVID hit, and then it kind of went crazy on the East Coast. I won't even say kind of. It absolutely, people lost their minds on the East Coast, and it got to the point, and rightfully so in the beginning, but it got to the point where my wife one day, she was just like, "All right, I'm ready to go," and I was like, "All right, let's go." Right? And so we had a bunch of different places where we're thinking about Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and she's like, "Well, why don't we just go back to Boise?" And I was like, "Well, I thought you didn't want to move anywhere, especially Boise." And she's like, "Well, all your friends are there. Like, let's just go back to Boise." And I was like, "Yeah." So, it was crazy. We put our house up and it sold in like 3 or 4 days. And now we're like, oh crap, we got to find a house. And so it all happened really, really fast. But I'd always been wanting to come back, and we'd come back every summer and visit our friends, and we'd go down to McCall and we spent time on the lake. And she always loved it here. She just, like I said, it's just not something that Jersey people usually do. And I give her credit. She took a leap of faith, and I think she loves it here. She misses her family, and that's tough. But we came back out, and now we're here, and the kids are thriving. All our kids are thriving, and we're loving it.
Yeah, tell me about that. I know you're a proud husband, proud father of 4. That's quite a few kids to wrangle around. But how old are the kids, and what are they starting to get into? Any of them following in Dad's footsteps?
Okay, so yeah, I got two boys, 2 girls. The boys are the oldest. My oldest just graduated from Boise High last year. He went out to University of Utah, for the first semester. He's now home now. He's going to be doing some other things. He didn't quite enjoy that experience. My next son, champ. He's at Rocky Mountain High School. He's going into his senior year playing football. My oldest daughter will be a freshman at Rocky next year. And then we have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's in elementary school. And she'll probably, be a soccer player or track athlete or something like that. She's really fast. But, yeah, they're all doing great. They're thriving. They're enjoying being here. They have great friends. Yeah, great.
And I know you've gotten to coach on the Rocky Mountain staff. So walk me through you getting into coaching, and how has it been from player to coach?
It's so I coached in Jersey. It's funny. So my son that does play football, he started playing when he was, I believe, in the second grade, and he kept saying, "I want to play football. I want to play football." And I'm like, I didn't really want him to start that early, and I was like, okay, two things: if you're gonna play, I'm gonna coach you, and you can't quit, because I knew like that first day the pads come on, you're hitting. And so after the first practice, he was like, I don't know if I'm like, nope, you're finishing the year. All right. So he finished that year, and he played, and we got through it. And at the same time, so I was coaching his youth team in Jersey, and then I was coaching at the high school in Jersey. We moved here. My friend Dre coaches at Rocky Mountain, and back then Coach Kulig was the head coach there. He's a great coach here and at Bishop Kelly right now. And I was looking to help his staff. I just wanted to coach maybe DBs or just help out. And he ended up going over to Bishop Kelly. Coach Kreiner, who just retired, tremendous coach. I met with him, and he was like, we have an open position. And I was like, I just want to coach safeties. He's like, well, if I can't find anyone else to be a defensive coordinator, will you do it? And I was like, well, if you can find someone else, yeah, but I just want to coach the safeties. And they couldn't find anyone else. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so I'm going into my third year there at Rocky Mountain as a defensive coordinator. We've had a lot of great success. Coach Kreiner is now retired. We have a new coach coming in, Coach Gary Thorson from Ridgeview. He's been awesome so far. I stayed on staff. Dre stayed on staff. And so it's going to be me calling the defense, Dre's calling the offense, and we're just going to go out there and compete and see how it goes.
I love that Coach Kreiner said they couldn't find anybody. I feel like that might have been a conscious decision to not find anybody for that D coordinator role. But I'm curious, you as a coach, you've had so many coaching role models. You've played at the highest level. What is your coaching style? Does it mimic any of the former coaches you've had over the years?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've kind of pulled little bits and pieces from all the different coaches. Like Andy Reid was tremendous at staying even keel. He never was too high, never too low. He was always focused on the end game. So I gotten that from him. The analytical side and the creative side from Sean McDermott and Steve Spagnuolo. I still run the same defense that I played in, Jim Johnson's original defense. And so I take that from them. I take a little bit from Jeff Fisher when he coached me with the Rams, a little bit of the players coach mentality, having fun, relaxed. But I can also click into like Ron Rivera, where he's like, don't take no crap. Like I can snap on you in a second. So, and it's kind of cool because I've taken little bits and pieces that I thought was very effective from all these coaches and kind of molded them into me. And it's kind of who I am as a person anyway. Like I'm a very calm, easygoing person. I'm analytical. I can break things down, but I can also teach you like you're a second grader or third grader. But at the same time, if I need to, I can snap and, I can get fired up. So I think it's been really cool. And I think that's one of my biggest assets is being around the game, but being around so many great coaches. Andy Reid's coaching tree is tremendous. And I've got a little bit from Harbaugh. Like special teams wise, we still run some of the things that I learned all those years back in the day. And so just all those things kind of rolled into ones really kind of helped me become a better coach and where we are today.
Youth sports today is so different than when you were growing up. The attention, the money that goes into it, the travel that goes into it. the intensity of parents, I feel like, has gone up tenfold. So for you to not only be a sports parent, but to be a youth sports coach, what is currently the best part of youth sports and the worst part of youth sports?
Yeah, the best part of youth sports is I I love the fact that get you can get to the players at a time where the game isn't about the money. It isn't about the stats. It isn't about you're just out there having fun, right? And that's what I love about it. Like the kids, they're not that serious. We're just out there having fun. So that's the best part of when you're coaching the youth. The high school, it's a little more serious, but we still have fun. They still play the game for the love of the game. I think, especially now in today's climate with the NIL and all that stuff, we haven't had too big of an issue at Rocky with it, but you can see it starting to build up with the parents and the money and the recruiting. That stuff is always when parents get involved. A lot of times they don't see all the hard work and extra time that we put in as coaches. They don't understand. I wouldn't say they don't understand, but they don't see that. At least the way I've seen it, there is not one coach that I've ever met that wants to just screw over a kid. There's not one coach that I've ever met that just wants to ruin this kid's life or his kid's career. We always have to look at things as a macro level and a micro level. You try to develop each player individually, but you also try to make sure that you can manage the entire team. And parents are the best and sometimes the worst part of it because they tend to forget and they kind of singleize their one son or their daughter or whatever situation, and they try to extrapolate that to everything that a coach does, and that's not the case. We as coaches, we always want what's best for every single one of our players, and so that to me is probably the hardest part, is dealing with the frustration from parents. And we love playing it. Like if I could put every kid in every game and have them go score 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, we would do it. So that's the hardest part.
Now, you're a natural in front of the microphone, in part because you've been hosting a podcast. We were talking, life got too busy, you're unable to do it. But what was it like hosting a podcast and still being very invested in the NFL?
Oh man, that was actually a lot of fun. It was very therapeutic. So it was Q&A. It was me and Jason Avant, who's another teammate of mine with the Eagles, and it was awesome because it was like we were in the locker room, right? We were just sitting there talking, chatting, talk a little trash. We go back and we'd rehash some old memories and some funny stuff that happened on the team, and we get to break down the game, and we would, do some film and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. But like you said, being all the way over here and on the East Coast is kind of tough. And it was getting tougher for me too, because the longer I was out here, the further I was getting detached from like the actual ins and outs of the everyday goings on in Philly. And, I couldn't really call and talk to people in the locker room like I used to do. And so I really do miss doing that podcast because it was a lot of fun, and it was very therapeutic for me to kind of be away from the game but still kind of be immersed in it a little bit.
Part of the reason you don't have time, we mentioned the 4 kids, which anyone watching is like, that's a lot to begin with. You throw 4 dogs on top of that. Walk me through, how do you end up with 4 dogs, and is it true that one of them came from a raffle?
Yeah, I got set up on that one. So yeah, my wife loves animals, and we have 2 French bulldogs. They're pretty old now. One's going on, I think, 11 or 12. So they're the older ones. Then we had a COVID dog, like I'm sure everyone else has. My wife, I love her to death. She wanted a Great Dane. And how she asks or she talks about the dogs, she doesn't really say, "Hey, can we get a dog?" She just starts showing me pictures of random dogs, and she was like, "Look at her, she's so beautiful." And so, COVID dog, we got the Great Dane, which they had the driver from, I think, Indiana, and the first thing she did when she got in our house in Jersey was take a dump everywhere, all over the house, diarrhea dump. That was awesome.
Good first impressions.
Yeah. And my favorite Poppy. So again, we were at a fundraiser for Rocky Mountain High School football, and they set you up, man. Like, you know, they have a little Weller, hopefully we get some Horseshoe Spirits there, right? And they set you up. You have a few drinks, and you look at the bidding things. You know, you got a nice little go-kart here, maybe a grill or something. But also they got these cute little puppies, and they're just walking them around. They just let you pet one. And I see my wife make eye contact with one. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. She's petting, and then they do the auction. And by that point, I was already done. I was like, you know what, whatever. So that night we took home Poppy. She's an Australian Shepherd. We love her. She's an awesome dog. Her bark is very annoying though. One of the first things she did when we got her, she chewed up one of my favorite hats. But outside of that, she's been great.
Is that better than diarrhea all over the house if you have to choose?
Yeah, absolutely. I would take that over the diarrhea. I mean, because it was spraying everywhere. I know, not to sound gross, but it was like a movie. It was like, and it made the sound. It was like, it was everywhere. It was so nasty.
So clearly, you struggle saying no with new dogs. Is there an animal that has been suggested by wife or kids that you just had to put your foot down and said, absolutely not?
I hate snakes. I'm terrified of snakes, but my son has a snake, so I lost that. I lost that argument. I lose every battle. One of the guys I work with at the school, he's like, yeah, I pretty much lost. I lost that battle. I lost that vote 1-1. So I lost that vote 1-1 on the snake. We had a groundhog. That was probably one of the weirdest animals that we had.
I don't even know where I would start to purchase a groundhog. How does that happen?
My wife she'll research it for you because she did for us. We had to go to some place and get a special permit. We had to drive all the way up to North Jersey. I hated that thing. He used to bite the crap out of me all the time.
Have any of these, I guess we can call them alternative pets or exotic pets, have any of them been good?
No, just the dog.
Just the dogs.
Yeah.
I could, yeah.
We had a Pac-Man frog. Oh man, I could just rattle off all the animals. We had a Pac-Man frog. He ate everything. He died.
I feel like you're getting dangerously close to having a petting zoo at your house on the weekends.
My wife, she wants goats now. Yeah, and a potbelly pig.
And if you had to pick between the two, what do you think is more likely to be at your household in the next year?
Probably the pig, because they're probably closer to dogs and they're really smart. Hope she doesn't see this and get any ideas. Probably too late.
Well, Q, this has been fantastic. We really appreciate you joining us. We end every show, opportunity for you, looking at that camera right there, message to Bronco Nation, whether it's the fans, current team, university at large, generally your one message to Bronco Nation.
All right, Bronco Nation. I know things have been kind of up and down this year. Please don't be mad at me for my tweet that I had last year. I was just being overly critical. We're going to get back to where we used to be. Just give it a little patience. I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in the changes that have been made. This recruiting class is great. Sean Jones is going to be a tremendous player, whether he's on offense or defense, maybe both. So you guys, good days are coming. Just stay with the team. We got it.
You're the man. Quintin Mikell, thank you so much.